Grace Daniel from U.S. Crime Files brings us a deep and troubling story from Houston, Texas, a story that has haunted a family for nearly 2 decades. It all began with the brutal murder of 71-year-old Maria Palomino, found dead in her apartment after being hit over the head with a piece of pottery and stabbed multiple times with a kitchen knife. The violent crime shocked the community, but what followed was even more unsettling. The arrest and conviction of a 15-year-old girl named Jennifer Jeffley, who has always maintained her innocence. Jennifer's story is heartbreaking. She grew up in a close-knit religious family that had recently moved to Houston. Her childhood was marked by tragedy, losing 2 brothers within a couple of years, one to violence and the other to cancer. At just 15 years old, Jennifer was already facing tremendous challenges, including caring for her ill brother and falling behind in school. On the night of the murder, Jennifer was staying at a friend's apartment in the same complex. She tells a story that contradicts the official version of events. According to Jennifer, her friend Eva Mandragon, who lived upstairs from the victim, urged her to tell police they had been together at the time of the murder, warning that their lives were in danger if they didn't stick to the story. Jennifer complied, fearing for her safety and that of her family. When police arrived, they found Maria Palomino's body in her doorway, surrounded by broken pottery and signs of a struggle. The medical examiner confirmed she died from blunt force trauma and multiple stab wounds. Blood was found in several places, and 2 purses had been rifled through. Jennifer's statements to police changed several times during the investigation. Initially, she said she was at a neighbor's apartment on the phone when the murder happened, but under hours of intense interrogation, sometimes without a parent or attorney present, her story shifted. She eventually gave a written confession, which she says was typed by detectives and signed only because she was exhausted and promised she could go home afterward. The confession named 2 men, Ernest and Tim, as accomplices, names Jennifer says she didn't even know. Jennifer's family and supporters believe she was set up by police, eager to close the case. There was no physical evidence linking her to the crime scene. No blood or fingerprints of hers were found. The DNA evidence didn't match her, and the 2 men named in the confession were never charged. Her court-appointed lawyer reportedly failed to communicate with Jennifer or her family properly, didn't call alibi witnesses, and didn't challenge the confession. Jennifer's mother, Jackie, recalls how the lawyer never returned calls or letters and was unprepared at trial. This lack of proper defense was a major factor in Jennifer's conviction. Despite these glaring issues, Jennifer was found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to life in prison. Her appeals were denied, including by Texas's highest criminal court. But the fight for justice didn't end there. Years later, Jennifer received a shocking letter from the Houston Crime Lab. The DNA evidence did not match hers. Still, no one else was charged, and the real killer remains unknown. Eva Mandragon, the key witness who initially told police a different story, has been out of Jennifer's life since the trial. U.S. Crime Files tried to interview Eva, who declined, citing safety concerns. But in a phone interview, Eva insisted Jennifer was involved, claiming she saw blood on Jennifer's clothes and bruises on her arms. These conflicting accounts only deepen the mystery. This case highlights serious concerns about how the justice system handles minors. Jennifer was just a teenager with the maturity of a younger child, yet she was interrogated for hours without legal support. Her confession was coerced under pressure, raising questions about the fairness of her trial. Attorney Jesse Weber, who reviewed the case, says Jennifer wasn't technically in custody during her first questioning, making it harder to argue her rights were violated. He also notes the lack of recording during the interrogation. While the situation was far from ideal, he believes the chances of a new trial are slim under current Texas law. The story also brings attention to broader issues, like how poor legal representation can affect outcomes. Jennifer's family believes better counsel could have made all the difference. Meanwhile, Jennifer has lost nearly 2 decades of her life behind bars, missing out on normal experiences like dating and building a future. In another heartbreaking story, U.S. Crime Files covers the murder of 18-year-old Jason West in Madison, Alabama. Jason was shot during a drug deal gone wrong, and his mother, Maureen, shares her grief and reflections on the dangers facing young people, even in seemingly safe neighborhoods. The two men charged with Jason's murder face serious consequences, but Maureen struggles with the idea of them facing the death penalty, recognizing they too have families. These stories remind us how fragile justice can be and how deeply violent crime affects families and communities. They call for fairness, accountability, and reform to make sure the innocent are protected and the guilty are truly held responsible.